Hey guys, in this video I wanted to do kind of more or less a fun thought experiment on where I think the electoral college map projections are going to be heading towards over this next decade. So 2 presidential election cycles from now in 2028, what that map might look like as opposed to what we're currently looking at on the screen, which is the 2020 electoral map, or the consensus of the average of the different maps that we have from all of the different resources that we have here on 270 to win. So the current 2020 map has the Democrats at 248, the Republicans at 204, with 86 in the toss-up region. So what I'm going to do is go through and shift around the states that I think are going to be changing a bit as we head towards 2028. Starting here with the Southwest, which has been really great for the Democrats in recent years, as well as likely going into the future as the demographics continue to get better and better for the Democratic Party in this area. I think Nevada goes over from being just a lean to being likely Democratic. New Mexico, I think they go from being likely Democratic to being safe. I think Colorado stays there at being likely. And then I think Arizona goes from being a toss-up to being a lean for the Democrats. And then I also think the state of Texas here goes from being likely to the Republicans to being a true battleground toss-up state 8 years from now. So those are the changes I see in the Southwest. Also, Montana, we have seen, of course, Democrats having the ability to win there statewide in terms of the governorship as well as some of these Senate races, but they haven't had as much success in terms of presidential races. I don't think it's safe dark red for the Republicans, but just moving it one notch over to being likely, I see that as being the case heading towards 2028. Leaving Florida in the toss-up category, but also shifting Georgia to being toss-up. Georgia, a very diverse state, and on top of that, the population center in and around Atlanta, which is a growing population region of the country, has been shifting towards the Democrats, becoming a bit more liberal. And we've already seen statewide races in recent election cycles be very close and competitive. And I think in 2028, Georgia is going to be in a true toss-up situation, leaving North Carolina as well in that true toss-up situation. Now, Virginia has been a state that's trended towards the Democrats, but with the Democratic Party shifting a bit more to being progressive, I don't necessarily think that helps them in a state that's a bit more conservative Democratic like Virginia, and I think that pops them one step down to being lean Democratic instead of being likely Democratic. And now we get into an area where I start seeing some shifting a bit more towards the Republicans. And we have seen this in the Midwest, of course, in 2016 with Trump doing well, picking up states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and then a little bit outside of the Midwest, but kind of a similar scenario in Pennsylvania. Now, I think a lot of that just had to do with the relative weakness of Hillary Clinton in this region of the country, whereas the Democrats, if they pick a different kind of candidate, a bit more populist in nature, I think that they can combat some of the losses that they had there in 2016 on the presidential level. But nonetheless, this is a trend that we're seeing in this area, and in some of these states, specifically like a Michigan, where Detroit, the area in and around the Detroit region, a big population center, but it has been receding in its population numbers, which is making Michigan a bit more competitive and interesting. And I think that Michigan in 2028 is in the true toss-up category, leaving Pennsylvania as well in that toss-up situation, with Ohio being in the lean towards the Republicans as well as Iowa. But I think Wisconsin moves one step over to being a lean towards the Republicans by 2028. I think Minnesota is the exception here in the Midwest. We've seen the Democrats do extremely well, particularly just this past midterm in 2018, where they swept those statewide races, doing extremely well. And the Democrats, out of all these Midwestern states, of course, you have Illinois being the safest, but then I'd put Minnesota as the second safest for the Democrats, followed by Michigan in this region. I think Michigan moves over a step as well as Wisconsin, but leaving Minnesota as being a lean towards the Democrats, and then also Illinois being safe for the Democrats. It's just going to be a tough ask for the Republicans to try to make serious inroads in the state, given the large population that's in and around the Chicago area, which is very Democratic in nature. And then Nebraska, leaving that one the same in terms of the 2nd Congressional District being a toss-up. However, going up into the Northeast, I see Maine statewide taking one step over to being likely for the Democrats, and then the 2nd Congressional District being a true toss-up. Now, we actually saw the 2nd Congressional District go for the Democrats, flipping it congressionally in 2018. It was an incumbent Republican, but the Democrats were able to pick that one up. I see that one being in the toss-up area in 2028. Also, I could see New Hampshire being in a situation where it's one step over from being lean Democratic to likely Democratic. And then more or less, that's kind of where I have the Electoral College map heading towards 2028. Quite a few shifting around, specifically in the southwestern region, as well as into the Midwest and then some of those northeastern states. But that's how I have it. So essentially, quite a bit more in terms of the true toss-up numbers, and a lot of that has to do with the 38 electoral votes of Texas being up for grabs. And then also adding in Michigan in that instance, as well as Georgia, which both of those states have quite a few electoral votes as well. But it makes things look a little bit more attainable for the Democrats in terms of their advantage in the safe, likely, and lean states, in contrast to the Republicans. If we take a look back here, so this is the current 2020 map that has 248 for the Democrats and 204 for the Republicans, and the changes that I see heading towards 2028 as we continue to get some of these demographic shifting and just voter sentiment in general in some of these different areas shifting around. And I'd love to hear your guys' own opinions on this, on the switches and changes that you think are going to be happening in these states over this next 8 years, and put your own thoughts down in the comment section. I'd love to read what you guys are thinking about this. Do you think I'm maybe giving the Republicans a bit too much here in the Midwest, or maybe giving the Democrats a bit too much in the Southwest? All of this is up for debate, but I think these are what the trend lines are showing at this point in time, and I think this is probably more or less something that we could see relative in this range heading towards 2028. So that's all I wanted to talk about here in today's video, and I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching all the way through here till the end. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys back here for my next video.